there was the initial election and the company petitioned to get it set aside.
Yeah,
And then what happened?
we were
was it set
certified
aside?
as a collective bargaining agent, and we asked for a meeting to, do collective bargaining. And the company refused, and we had to go back to the labor board to fight on that question, the refusal to bargain in good faith. That's when Sadowski came in again, because he had gone back and then he came in to help. And we got Cora Valentine.
Who is this who came in? Salutski?
Sanewski, Cynewski.
I'm not going to ask that one.
I said he was a business agent from.
He was from Amesbury.
From Amesbury.
Yeah, you didn't mention his name, but.
Oh, didn't I? I'm sorry. Frank Sanewski, very fine person, did a very good job there. He was our, and Cora Valentine was hired in the meantime. In the meantime, I was taken ill, and I landed in the hospital. Joe said conveniently, so they were after me. The girls that beat up Cora Valentine were really after me. But.
Okay, let's talk about that beating then. Cora was beaten up.
Cora was beaten up, not severely, but she was beaten up.
And how old was she?
She was, I would say she was in her 60s.
And out of, say, Florida, Miami, or just she was from Florida?
Well, she was in Atlanta, had moved from Miami to Atlanta. And so they beat her up while I was in the hospital. Well, Joe wanted to get her out of the hotel. He was afraid to leave her there. So he called up Governor Folsom and told him the story. That's one time the labor movement in the South. She got terrific publicity. I said, Cora, I'd have been glad for. I said I got beaten in Chicago. They didn't even put me in the paper. But I said you got all over the South. Just reams of stuff. A woman beaten up, And they were beating organizers up anyway all along the amalgamated. Some got beaten up there too. And he said he'd have her escorted, police escort. So when she came out of the hotel, by the way, the hotel people were in cahoots with them. They could have warned her that they were going up, but they didn't. We were upstairs.
So they beat her in the hotel?
The hotel, sure. Oh, yeah. And so the police of the motorcycles came to the hotel. She was escorted out in grand style. Well, when I got better, I went back to Greenville.
When was Joe beaten? When was Joe Jacobs beaten?
Joe Jacobs was beaten up. Let me see if he was beaten up before or after. Joe Jacobs was beaten up before. That I know. And then she was beaten up later. Let's see if I have one. She was beaten up. Woman union stepped in. After me, look at the story they got. Joe would have a fit if he saw this. One unionist steps in after man organizers run out of town. Is it out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's on. It's right. Farm Labor Press.
Yeah, I remember we had an interesting, by the way, the labor board man Levis, the hearing officer, was charged with collusion. They tried to say that he favored the union side, and they brought charges against him. But that Greenville case was memorable for one more reason that the labor movement will remember. It was where they had the captive audience. It used to be taboo, That was the last case that ever was held on that one item. So every time they talk about Greenville, the people who are familiar with labor board always remember about the Greenville case. Uh,
This is just before Taft Hartley, right? It's
um,
46. Taft Hartley comes in 47.
I think just before, well, I don't know. Captive audience. When did Taft Hartley come in?
47.
Gee, you're better informed than I am. I forgot. 47.
I think so.
Well, maybe that's why, because in 47, the Taft Hartley law banned no, at first they were trying to ban the union shop, but then they had a ruling that people could vote on it. What was it?
Right.
Yeah.
People could vote on it.
They have to vote on whether they wanted a union shop or not, but that was abandoned later on too, because because it worked all right. Found that people didn't mind it as a rule. It's only during the campaign. So we signed the contract uh, in May of 1949, but the employer never got over the fact that he had to sign the union contract. He never forgave us. So he made the life miserable for the people. But I remember the Union Observer, that's a huge story, I gotta tell it. The Union Observer was Willie. And he was a nice guy, but it took him forever to say, yes, ma'am, you know. And, but he was
observer in the election.
He was Union Observer for the election. Right. Each side has whatever it amounted, usually about 2 observers. And when each one voted in the block, you know, that's what happens when the union people want to go together and they vote. And even though I warned Willie that this would happen, I said, now you might get all yes votes all at once and all no votes all at once. Now don't get alarmed. Well, anyway, I'm not there for the election, but I can go and see when it's being counted. I watched poor Willie. I thought he'd die before the yes vote would come in. He turned ashen. He was just as white as could be. And then after the block of no's, the yes come in, and his earlobes began to tingle. It looked like I got so red, it lit up like a bulb, you know, and his smile. They were very poor people. I never saw such abject poverty as I saw in the South there. That their houses were on stilts, you know, 4 pieces of block of wood or metal or whatever it is that they put the house on. Wood, I suppose, wood base or blocks of cement maybe. It does get cold, in spite of what people say, the South isn't always warm, you know. And in those days they used to have pot-bellied stoves in one room. And if you sit near it and either keep warm, you burn up. If you go away from it, you freeze. They didn't even have curtains on their windows. They didn't have rungs. You could see the dirt, the soil through the cracks of the wood, and they'd stuff the windows with the paper to keep the draft from coming in. They used to earn the girl, this Willie and his wife. She worked there too, and she's a wonderful person. They didn't even have spoons and forks to eat with, you know. And they used to eat. They invite me for dinner, you know. Well, of course, I dispensed. I told them I'm on a diet, and I couldn't eat the food that they ate. And the biscuits were delicious. The southern biscuits are wonderful, but they had sorghum, and things like that. A lot of fat and grease and stuff. I thought, poor things, I wonder, how can they really continue to exist? She said she worked in the fields, the cotton fields, for as little as 10 cents a day. And then when they couldn't meet their obligations, whatever they had would always be repossessed or taken away from them, so they'd have to start life all over again. like I said, well, were your people that way? I called it inherited poverty because from one generation to another they inherited it. Then the children, how far they went in Greenville. It was 50 miles from the cradle of the Confederacy. I remember that sign every time I'd have to go by it. 50 miles uh, from the cradle of the Confederacy. Um, see, I deviate so much. That's my trouble. I get excited. It strikes home different things that I remember. What was I going to say? What was I?
Just talking about Greenville and the conditions of the people.
The children. That they were so mean and so cruel that the teachers would punish the children. The parents belonged to the union. They would hold them back. They keep them after school. They would scorn the children. When it came to unemployment insurance, the employer put obstacles in their path when they were laid off so that they'd have to wait a long time to be able to get it. I can't begin to tell you the method of discrimination they had in almost every town that I went to. I may have forgotten. It could apply to Corsicana. It could apply to all the small southern towns
Now,
that I
these
went to.
in Greenville are white workers, right?
Oh yes, no blacks at all. No blacks at all. All white. And they were very poor. And I remember that when we had a convention, I said, Willie has got to come to New York. I don't care if I have to pawn everything I got in the house if the union won't let him. But they did. They were very nice. So we brought Willie to New York to the convention. He couldn't wait till he got back. And the wife tells me that they used to sit around in the living room, whatever they call it. It wasn't a living room. Everything was living. And he'd tell them fabulous tales about New York. You know, they even took them to the Bowery. They took them to nightclubs, and places. Frank Snusky did that because he knew him from his work there. They were very nice to him. But what happened was that the company made up its mind that they're not going to make it easy for the people. So I was in Birmingham, Alabama. It's another town. When I get a call from Willie and his wife, our people are resigning. See, we never got the closed shop. We couldn't get the closed shop. People are resigning from the union. They're turning in. There's certainly cards that they sign in closed shop areas is that they have an opportunity, 30 days notice to withdraw from the union. They're beginning to resign. There's pressure from the company. Come and save us. So I got in the car. It was about 16 miles away from there. And on the highway, I saw a truck stopped. So, I kind of slowed down. I wanted to. As I slowed down, two men got out with guns. And they said, if you're going to Greenville, Alabama, we'll have to tell you, we'll give you 24 hours to get out of town. So I got in the car and continued right on to Greenville, Alabama. But what had happened in the meantime, I was only gone a few days. The company had gotten the majority of the people to sign resignations because they all signed at the same time, you see. And the people told me Willie hurriedly called a meeting of the people, some of the men there, and the women, at his home. So we got to get Miss Lucia out of town. Her life was in danger. They were after me. Because one time they tried to stop me on the highway. They almost swiped me off the highway. And in the middle of the night, they escorted me out of town, so that I wouldn't have any trouble. And that's the last we saw of the company because then it closed its doors because they had overexpanded. See, they couldn't carry on because they overexpanded during the war, and it had nothing to do with the union. But we got blamed for it. So anybody that found us in that town must have had a terrible time after that.
So when was this that finally
Well, finally it closed its doors and there was nothing. Then Amesbury, it was funny, Amesbury went through a period of also bankruptcy. and the union loaned it money to continue. You remember that
We're reading that they did
Yeah,
things like
well,
that, Dave.
because it had an obligation to its people. They felt terrible that it was going out of town, and Amesbury is a small town, and the hat shop closing, it would deprive numerous families, uh, being bankrupt also. So they asked the people to, if they could afford to give a little bit, sign loan papers. And I don't know how much the union collected from the people themselves, but the great big bulk of the money came from the union, which we lost about, I don't know, we lost $75,000, $100,000. And after a while, they couldn't keep it up. They didn't have any work. Because the foreign imports, what bodies they needed, they came from Taiwan or Hong Kong, wherever it is, France even. And we couldn't get any relief on the tariff business. So they closed their door eventually. Amesbury closed its door.
I want to talk about, if you have anything else you want to say about Greenville, I want to talk about Corsicana.
Corsicana, oh boy, do I have a history of that? I have to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's very hard.
Why don't we look into it in the file and then
Yeah, before I get
everything is
started.
there, I'll stop this.
Corsicana. That's the hardest of all because I was in and out so many times. And they said, that's nothing. We've known that we're all on. There's nothing we could do about it. And to prove it, they gave me a copy of the material they had gathered on it. But I said, what do you mean you can't do anything about it? I said, these girls are afraid to tell you anything. But amongst them, if work is being done, you can find out for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. They knew it. They had gathered the material on the floors and who was guilty of it and how many girls and so forth and so on. I said, I wasn't going to fool around with anything like that if I'm not going to get any help on the question of sex. Maybe I would today. I could turn into Elizabeth Ray. Have them all turn into Elizabeth Ray and collect money. Back pay.
That was in Erie, Pennsylvania?
Erie, Pennsylvania. Corsicana. Well, let's see how far back I can go. I think one of the nicest leaflets I was complimented on it by a number of people was just between friends, making an appeal to the union people, non-union people after we had organized and signed a contract. No, 59. 58. May 58. This is one is ours and the other one is the company's. And I never got so tired of hearing the Yellow Rose of Texas as I did that year. They had a tune down the radio station. I think somebody must have told them it irritated me. And they every time something came on, it was the Yellow Rose of Texas, 58. Now I know that I went there much before 58. You know, I can't find. Oh, the Texas Miller. I had a separate folder for it, and I can't find it. Texas Miller to be organized. It's 58, but I had been there before.
Well, why don't we start with what you remember about it?
Yeah. Let's start 51. It looks Lions here, AFL spokesman tell about the red threats. That's when I came back from my Marshall Plan, and I was speaking on the Marshall Plan and against communism, which was timely there, you know, in Corsicana. The owner of the hotel where we stayed, one day I went in to have lunch there in his restaurant, He says, Miss Lucia, can you help me? I need a speaker so badly tomorrow. My speaker abandoned me. And I said, well, why not me? He said, well, you're not very graciously accepted by the people. I said, well, let's talk about the union. I said, I just come back from France and working for the government, and I'm able to talk on the Marshall Plan, the effects it has on the life of our nation, and stopping the trend toward communism if we can. Oh, he said, that'd be fine. That'd be just the subject they'd like to hear. So when he introduced me, they didn't know I was coming. You should have seen their faces. How the hell did she get here? Told her to come in. You know, they could have murdered the guy. And then when he announced that I was going to speak on my trip to France on the Marshall Plan, the expression changed a little bit, but I had something to talk about. It was the unions that we were visiting in France. And says, well, they finally introduced me, and I told them what the purpose was. That we're trying to stem the tide of communism in Europe, and that there's quite a bit of it being demonstrated in the trade union movement in France, and that it would be good for us to learn about what troubles the French people and whether the Marshall Plan has been effective or not. And I said, and of course, you know, what made it possible for the communists to make inroads is, first of all, the war. Secondly is that there was need and unemployment and starvation. And they're listen to anybody, any messiah that comes along. It's not particularly that they were interested in communists as such, but they're the people that usually are there when something like that happens. And I said, contrary to all beliefs, if that's the first thing that was done during the Hitler regime, was to kill the trade union movements. That was the beginning of the Holocaust that brought us all into war. Well, I fixed it that way, and then what unions had done, and then I thought, well, I've talked enough about unions now. I better talk about the Marshall Plan and such. That when the wealth or any group of people in an area, I was thinking, there's an awful lot of oil people in that audience, you know, because I didn't know they were oil magnates. I used to say to the man at the desk, when am I going to meet these oil millionaires? He says, Miss Lucia, you talk to them every day. I said, those people, they look like they're ditch diggers. He said, yeah, you should have the ditches that they dig. Because, you know, of course, Canada had erupted with oil very recently at the time, all things considering, in Kilgore, Texas. They're even on their main street. You see the derricks going up and down, you know. Fascinating to watch them because at Christmas time they decorate them all the way up, you know. They light the horizon in more ways than one. And so I was very graciously received. I want to say that I got quite an applause after I got through. And this was the star. Even the newspaper gave me credit for winning those people over because it was an unusual talk from their point of view and accepting it so readily. All right, now.
Oh, when you spoke, do you usually speak from notes? Or is
no,
this
I can't
extemporaneous?
speak from notes. If
No.
you want to kill me, you just give me notes to go by and I'm lost. It's all extemporaneous. And so I said, I said, I know we're not accepted here. Very graciously, we've been looked upon askance, and the rumor is going around that we're communists. I said, well, the fact that I was investigated by the government before they send anybody on a mission like that, they have the FBI. I don't know what I know about the FBI now. They have the FBI investigating the individual to see that there's no red taint or that they're the kind of person that they want to send on a mission like that. So I said, as far as communism is concerned, you don't have to worry about that from our union. And then I thought, as long as I'm telling them about what we've done in other cities a little bit. So little by little, I kept edging toward what we're going to do in the city. And Not that it used to, as far as the Texas Miller was concerned. It was a freak the way that got started. Now, you heard of George Lambert, didn't you, or Latane Lambert? Well, George Lambert was one of the men that was also beaten up by the thugs in Dallas at the time they were beating up everybody, you know? When Bayer was beaten up. Well, he was the organizer for the Amalgamated Coaling Workers. Latane was a freelancer. She was a very able person, and she worked for different unions. Well, we had Latane, Latane, Lambert, Lambert. George is dead now, but Latane is still around. We we had thought that we ought to start a campaign in Corsicana. We had sort of, looked into it once, without it, just the feel of the town, the spirit of the town. The time wasn't timely. So we hired Latane Lambert for Dallas work because Arvel Lynch had left and we needed someone to substitute for Arvel. And she was told, keep away from Corsicana, because we had promised him, he was a runaway shot from New York. At least we had promised, the union had promised him, we won't bother you for a year. But as soon as the year is up, we'll come and try to organize your people.
Why did the union promise not to bother him for a year?
Because he said, I'm moving out. Now, if you're going to, he needed to build his shop up. He was decent enough to go to the union and say, I'm moving out. And I'm not moving because of the union. Because if I need a plant, I need space. I can't have it here in New York. It would cost too much. But there I can get it, free of charge, tax-free or whatever it is, all the tributes they give them and inducements to bring them into the city. He says, but you got to give me at least a year to break in my help before you make any attempt to organize. Because otherwise you're not going to be fair. If you're going to exact payment right away quick, then I'd have to train these people. Well, Latane didn't remember, didn't care. But she happened to know a postman that was a postman in Corsicana. I don't know how she got acquainted with him. And she asked what he was doing. He says, well, I'm a mail carrier. Where? In Corsicana. Oh, in Corsicana. Do you know anybody that works in the gas shop? Yeah, he says, I think I can get you some names. So he got her about 11 or 12 names. That's before she even notified us. I was on my way going down. I was going to go down for something else. When I got there, she said, Carmen, we're due in Corsicana today. I said, oh, no, you're not. I said, you've been told not to bother them. Says, but I've already did. I sent the letter and the meeting is called for today. Which was about 50 miles from Dallas. Well, by the time we got there, I finally had to go, of course, because the letters had been forthcoming. I said, you're going to get hell because you were told to leave them alone. By the time we got there, I don't know how the people found, so you could, if any of you want to see me before the meeting, she said in the letter, we'll be at the Navarro Hotel. So they assumed that that's where we'd be staying. It was the only hotel in town anyway, couldn't stay anywhere else. And so when we got there were 11 people waiting for us. They had been fired because they had put up a notice on the bulletin board and were encouraging everybody around the clock to go to the meeting, not knowing that they're going to be fired. The reason for that is they weren't afraid is because the steel workers had a big plant there that had been organized for years. And they all had husbands and so forth. So they weren't afraid, they didn't have that fear. So we thought, what do you mean you were fired? So I always carried a typewriter. If it wasn't a mimeograph machine, it was a typewriter. I took the affidavits right away quick, and I said, I'm going to go and see the employer. So I went to see Ben Peril, that's his name. I used to call him the Red Peril because he had red hair. And his name wasn't spelled P-E-R-I-L, it's P-A-R-R-I-L-L. Ben Peril, and told him, what are you doing? You're violating the law. These people didn't even, I said, we didn't even know that they were coming. He says, well, you people double-crossed me. Your boss promised me that I wouldn't be bothered for a year, and it isn't a year. It's only 9 months I've been here, and I think that you've broken your promise, and I can do as I darn please. Well, he was furious. He wouldn't take him back, so we had to file charges. Not only that, but in the meantime, all the company foremen were going all around that night to see who was coming at the meeting. When the people was about to get into the hotel, they'd see the company car, so they'd go right on, So we had a very bad meeting. Just the 11 or maybe a couple of more. I don't even know if we had a couple of more. They might have been stooges for all we know. So that started the campaign. We had to keep somebody there. We had to go to the labor board. We got Nat Wells and Charlie Morris and all the Nat Wells. Do you know Nat Wells? He's one of the attorney that we had in Dallas in that case for George Bayer. He was labor board attorney and a wonderful person. The son of a preacher. Not a son of a gun or something, son of something else, but son of a preacher. And he represented organized labor his whole. In the meantime, we kept on organizing and getting results in spite of it. And in the meantime, too, the steelworkers closed its doors. Which had nothing to do with our situation. There had been talk about going out of business for a long time. They were concentrating their efforts in one area. I don't know. That's something to that effect. I'm not quite sure what the reason was, but I think it was one concentration or centralization. Well, that didn't do us any good. They blamed the union for it. So we tried to have a strike. But most of all, first we tried the board. We lost the election, but then we started to see if we could work up a strike feeling. And the company, we had the majority as far as that. But they had given Mr. Carroll a ring for Christmas, and the day before the election, he makes a speech and he cries and he takes the ring off. He says, "You want me to take this ring off? Because I'll never be able to wear it if you vote for the union." And they had signs up on, there was an underpass going to the factory. Ben knew you win. And 5 o'clock in the morning, I went to see you, and who was with me? I'll think about it afterwards. Somebody was with me, but it was a local person. We found the balloons. They had balloons, vote no, yes vote means strike vote, everything. And they had like Burma shaped signs, all along. Of course, they had it on the sidewalk, which I called the police department and had them removed. And what they didn't remove, I kicked off anyway. And the balloons we deflated with pins and needles. And but anyway, we lost the election. So I left somebody in charge there. I think the local boy's in charge. I said, if anything should happen, and there's any attempt at any time of appealing for the union. Oh, in the meantime, the employer had also called the men in. The men were the key people in that particular situation. And they recanted. No, he didn't call them in. They went in. And they recanted. They apologized for their having brought this about so far. So when I got a call about a year later, I have no idea of time, that they wanted to organize. I said, all right, call the meeting. I said, listen, boys, you double-crossed yourselves once, don't double-cross yourselves a second time. So they swore a stack of Bibles. I had the Gideon Bible in my hotel room. They swore a stack of Bibles, it wouldn't happen. We were fooled once, we wanted to be fooled a second time. They did the same thing. He makes another speech. He gives them a party the night before. He gets them drunk. He promises them a bonus. All this. Of course, it's good material for the labor board, but who wants the labor board except as a last resort? And we lost the election. When I get back to the hotel, I was Oh, he was taking pictures. Red Pearl was taking pictures. And you can imagine what I looked like in his moving and coming out when the boat was lost, and I saw it. He was being patted on the back, and they had given him flowers, a great wreath of flowers, and congratulations to Ben, you know. And well, it was so I could be too there. And I held my head. I didn't want to cry. I felt like crying, but I put my head up and walked stiffly by, you know. Goodbye, Miss Lucia. I hope you feel better. Then Carol said. So I go to the hotel, and the woman at the desk says to me, Miss Lucia, some girls were there. They left you a package. It was a beautiful package with ribbons and everything, you know. So I thought, who gave me a package? I was so anxious to see who it was. I needed consolation, you know. And I opened it. I didn't even know what it was. I can see the man's face who was helping me. He was from the Stetson Hat in Philadelphia, and I can't think of Artie somebody. He said, don't you know what it is? I said, no, I don't know what it is. It was cow dung, great big cow dung, dried cow dung, in appreciation for your efforts. No names or anything. Something I really went upstairs in a hurry, so I could cry my eyes out. And I tried to find out who the five were. By the description, I think I was able to make it, but I thought someday I'm going to go after those 5 people and I'm going to get them in the union. That's my revenge, is to make union people out of them. Well, again, we had labor board cases. Again, they were told that they had made mistakes and that they violated the law and everything. Finally, in '58, I think is when we got them. That I was called back. I said to Alex, I don't want to go back there again. I can't get for the 3rd time. I'd die if I lost, you know. He said, no, you're going back because they know you and they have more confidence in you. And who am I going to send that would know the people? So I went back and moved on. But it took the campaign of the Texas Miller Adams Hatch, the union label business, to really get him to sign the contract. We had him down on his knees. By the time we got through with going to all his customers, every store that he had all over the country, wherever there was an Adams Hatch store, the union sent people in from their respective locals to go in. He couldn't get any orders. People were afraid to put orders in for fear that they put the orders, couldn't get the hats. It would be a strike imminently. There would be a strike. So he recognized the union and signed the contract. Okay, then the union expires. The contract expired. Yeah, I could say it right. The union expired. I understood. Contract expired. We had to renew it. We had one hell of a battle. Again, the use of the union labor. And I had been gone by that time. Carl Otto was in charge of the Texas situation by that time. Carl. C-A-R-L. Carl Otto. O-T-T-O. He was in charge of Corsicana. In fact, he was in charge of that whole area, And, no, he wasn't, not completely, because we were still in Texas in 57, 58, and 59. No, this is 58. No, I was still in Texas, but not in charge of that particular area. I was in Garland and in Longview mostly, and so was Johnny Coolidge. And they were sure we were going to win. We had to go through another election. They were sure we were going to win the election, but we didn't. You know what saved us? The fact that they had union label. You can't. I made a badge out of theirs. They said buy Texas Adams hats. Buy Texas Union made. Something like that. I switched it around and wore the tags. and the company and the labor board said they had no right to it was intimidating. They had no right to make one like that. Anyway, he got tired of it after a while. Finally signed, and I think it was in '59 that the contract was finally signed. Yeah, 6 wage talks to begin in Corsicana. It's in 1960, so I imagine shortly after that the contract was signed.
Okay. Well, let's finish 60s. When did you finally leave the South?
Pardon?
When did you finally leave the South?
Let's see, my daughter was married in 52. I went to France in 50. She was married in 51. He got into the service. He went a year to Harvard. That would make it 52. Then he went to, he was drafted. He enlisted because he knew he was going to be drafted. So he was gone. He went to Korea, of all places. He was gone for 2 years, I think 18 months or 2 years. That would make it about 62 already. Well, I mean, I was following it 59, 60. She got married, no. She got married in 51. He was in about 60. About 50, 59 or 60, he came back from Korea. And then he got a job in Richmond, Virginia. That would make it what? Can't think anymore.
60, 61.
So that's when when he went to California. Oh, then he was in the service. He went to San Antonio. He was in the Air Force at San Antonio, and then he went to Sacramento. They have another airfield there. And then he came back and he decided that he was going, so it couldn't have been 60. Then he decided that he'd try to get his degree, his PhD in Emory. So it took about 3.5 years for him. He shortened it by going extra classes or something. So that would make it about 55 or 58, something like that, 55, 57. Then they moved to, he got a job with Union Carbide, and he went to Forest Hills, Monroe, New York. They were transferred to Monroe, New York. That's when I moved to.
So you were with him. That was late. Well, you said you were in Corsicana in 60?
Yeah, I was in Corsicana. 60 and 50. Well, I was in Holyoke up to 57. We had a long strike in Massachusetts and Holyoke. Then I went back to Atlanta. I wasn't still there in Atlanta in 57, so I didn't move when my daughter did. In 57, I was sent to Texas. We started the campaign we went. John Coolidge went first. He was sent to. The president was mad at me because the day that I was to leave Holyoke, he called me up. I hadn't been home in 7 months. I hadn't been to Atlanta in 7 months. He says, "I want you to take the plane this afternoon and go to Milwaukee." I said, "I'm not going to Milwaukee." He said, "What do you mean you're not going?" "I'm not going." I said, I haven't been home in 7 months. The boys go home every weekend. They all lived around there, Boston and so forth. And I said, "I've been stuck here for 7 months with a strike, working 7 days a week. I'm not going." "Oh, you wanted to." "Well, I decide where you're going. You may decide it, but you can't make me go." And I said, he said, "What are you vice president for?" I said, "It doesn't mean a damn thing to me." I said, "You don't pay vice presidents wages. And if it's the vice president that has to do the work, get your New York vice presidents, get off their fannies and go and do some work." I said it just as rough as that. I was so mad. And I hung up on him. So the boys went to bat for me because that's Frank Sanuski and Ed Irwin, who was in charge of the strike there. So gee, the girl has worked so hard. She's been here 7 months. She's going to be the mistress of ceremonies at our banquet tonight. Can't you make her stay? Can't you at least let her stay? No. So you people are aiding and abetting her. They got help. Didn't last long with them though. So I went home. I went to Atlanta, and instead of enjoying my leisure for three, let's see, it was July when I went home, and I didn't hear from them until September, I think. I was worried. I was getting paid. I don't know why I was worried, but I wasn't enjoying it. And he finally called me that I was wanted in Winchester, Tennessee. They're going to enlarge their shop, or they're going to move or something on dedication of the new building. That I should go, and I shouldn't stay there more than a day, and then go on to Texas. Because John Coolidge has been there, and they found the atmosphere very worthwhile and resist all. They made a speech, and I said, they made a speech and they left? I said, I bet the boss has made one already, and sure enough he had. Sure, as soon as Mr. Rolnick heard they were there, he made a speech. By the time we got there again, the people were gone. We had to start all over again. So, no, that's not Corsicana, is it?
No.
How did I get off?
No, but I was trying to finish up the story from after Corsicana and when you.
Well, Corsicana
and when you
was.
finally retired from the union from active work, what year and I don't know.
Well, it was the same. We went through the same difficulties with Resistol because while we won the election, we couldn't get a contract.
This
And then
really
we went to
typical.
Garland and we organized them, and we were waiting for a decision from the labor board. And when the decision company had appealed it several times, and when it went through the courts two or three times, they finally decided that they had had enough. They were going to sign with the union, so it's going to be done. And the campaign was on too on them, but it wasn't as effective because their hat brand wasn't as well known as the Adams hat brand. But he was annoyed. He didn't want all this trouble. He had had enough of it at 39 without going through it again in 57 and 58.
So when did you finally retire then? Or
Well,
stop active organizing?
Then M&B came. I had the M&B strike, you know. You didn't want
Yeah,
that, did you?
Richmond. No.
Did we cover that?
Yeah.
The M&B strike, yeah, we did. Pardon me, I'm sorry, really never finished. Because we kept trying to organize the rest of the market. There were quite a number of camp shops there. But the M&B, I had gone back to help. By this time, there had been a change in our office here in the International. They had to cut their staff, but didn't have the money, and they were trying to, but they didn't want to lose me. So I conceived the idea. No, I said I'm going to retire. That was the idea. I was going to retire at 65. In fact, it was a little bit of after 65, and Al Smoke liked my work and appreciated me a lot. He was very nice. He was the secretary-treasurer. He said, we can't afford to lose you entirely. Couldn't you work part-time? I said, no, I don't want to mess up my Social Security. He says, well, we'll pay you what the Social Security allow. And then you can continue. We'll call on you, and we'll make sure that it isn't too up. It became practically a steady job, you know. I was getting $16.80 a year, I think, something like that. So I finally had to give it up. I just felt it was very unfair. So I told him I was through. In 74, I finally told him I was resigning. I didn't even want to stay on the board, general board.
A long time.
Oh, it's long. It's awfully long. I can't believe all these years. What did he say you should do? Now, you're welcome to take all this stuff.
I can take it all. Is there anything you want copied in return like that?
No, I think I took a few things here that from here. I couldn't be bothered. I don't think I have this, though. Do you think you have?
No, we'd like it.
Huh?
We'd like it.
I would like it.
Okay, well, if we can have it, we can
Oh,
copy and return it.
That's about the only thing I want.
Okay.
The rest of it I don't care. Because you got a field of I put extras in. I tell you why, because I didn't have time to look through each folder to see if they were in the folders. So what I did was I made
Okay, well, hey, next thing, that'll be processed, and one of the things you do is you separate out the extras. So that we can just tell the process, usually we just throw it away, duplicates. But, no problem, just tell them, send it all back.
oh, that would be fine.
Sure, we'll take care of all of that.
Because you put it according to chronological order, according whatever the way you do it. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
How you do it.
Usually, well, we'll probably keep it the way you've got, but we'll clean it up a little bit more.
Yeah, I hope you do.
Yeah. And if you've got a pen, I want to fill this out. You're saying you always made everything dramatic, especially with the women.
Yeah. Especially, I wanted to dramatize anything and make it like a theater presentation of facts, though, but not to, but make the girl, I always would choose the prettiest girls and the most slender girls, because, it was just like an advertisement. And so I'd always dress them in white. I would hurriedly make dresses and have them in white with red sashes. They always looked so striking. And I remember whether it was a city hall or whether it was where the Liberty Bell is, but somewhere in Philadelphia there's a crooked stairway that goes all the way up. You can see it. And it's all open, a spiral staircase that goes all the way up. We were going for some reason. We had a strike and we had all been arrested. We had been in that jail that I told you about. All the toilets flushing at one time and the girls screaming and everything else. And here, as I watched at the bottom while the girls went up, I thought, what a beautiful picture that was to see those young girls imbued with the spirit of doing something, really catching the spirit of democracy in action, And we had moments like that on picket lines that I treasure so much. Or one scene that is very sad when I was arrested with a very sweet old woman on the picket line in Los Angeles strike. They were very mean. When we were arraigned before the harsh matron there, she insisted we get rid of all our rings and whatever we had jewelry. They treated us like prostitutes. Here was a sweet old lady who had never done a thing in her life. She was white-haired, a beautiful face, and very kind and soft-spoken. And she didn't rest until she removed that ring, her wedding ring, from that woman's hand. The woman cried. I was so mad. I cried because how could anybody be so dirty? What harm is that ring going to be on her finger? If you can't remove it, nobody's going to be able to steal it from her. Besides, we're only going to be here a short while. Well, they give us the works. And we were given a mattress and brought into this huge room where, like a great big huge dormitory, and they had 3-tier berths, choose your bed, make your bed lie on us. Well, all the choice ones were taken, and I thought, well, I'm going to put this poor thing, when she saw what was happening to her, she thought she'd die of shame and of humiliation. And so I kept saying, don't do this to her, don't let her stay here. I'll assume the responsibility. Let her wait in this office, and when the union comes to pay to take us out, why she can go right away quick. She won't have to wait for me. No, nothing will do. She has to go along with you. Well, the story was that we stayed there a long time though, about 4 or 5 hours. Well, I made her comfortable. I covered her up to go to sleep when I gave her an aspirin tab. But I'm going to find out something about this joint while I'm here. So that's what I'm asking. It was during the Depression. Beautiful girls, 16, 17, 18-year-old girls. What are you in for? What do you think? That's not, I'm just asking. I can't get a job. Do the best we can. people, the girls would come in the hope in Los Angeles that the talent staff would see them and couldn't get jobs. There were no jobs to be gotten anyway. Then I got a hardcore of prostitutes. So they said, this, I don't want this on TV. This is such little